Hello, here's another follow-up tutorial on the mass modeling in Revit. In this one, I will cover a little bit more modeling technique when you work on this conceptual modeling. And I will cover a little bit how you can create some more complicated forms like this one, rather than just a box. Okay. But first, I want to just make it clear, Revit is not going to be the perfect solution if you want to do like Zaha did, that type of organic form. It has limitations, so keep in mind we are going to play with these limitations, but still you can get some really cool form from it. All right, so again, I'm going to massing and site. I'm going to create in-place mass. You might notice is although Revit does allow you to create as many geometries as you can in a single mass, I would prefer you make independent mass each time. The reason is if you want to reorganize the spatial layout, you don't have to go to dig into edit in place and then move them. You can just move them directly in the project. So that gives you a little bit more flexibilities when you work on this composition of multiple mass. What I mean is, although here if you go to edit in place, you can add another solid geometry directly in the current mass, which is the massing one, but it's not as convenient as to make it independent, because if you're doing this way, you will see this became a single mass, so you can't really change the location of this one independently anymore, unless you jump into edit in place again, then you can move this around. So it's not that very convenient, right? So I would prefer using tab key. Make sure you select the whole geometry. Tab key, click, left click to make a selection, and then you can delete. Right. So I will make this as independent. So go ahead, create a massing in place. So this is massing 4. That's okay. Then I'm going to create a little bit more complicated form in this one. So maybe first I will just create a box, and then I will make it as a solid. Maybe I will create another box. This two is kind of interlocking together, so I'm going to just make a solid. I can adjust the height a little bit. Okay, so that looks good. Then I'm going to create a circle. Okay, and then I will make this circle as a void. Right, so make sure you're using the escape, get out, then select the circle, right, and then I'm going to create a void. When you're using circle as your void form, when you do that, you do have two options. One is a cylindrical shape, another is a spherical shape. You can have these two options. I will go with the cylindrical shape, and I push up the void a little bit. I just make sure it carves through these two boxes. I think I'm probably not making this in the right height. You can tell this from the side view. Oops, side view. Right, this is not really overlapping. In this case, I think I can drag it down. Right, just make sure they do have overlapping. Switch to the third view, and I can move this a little bit. Make sure it's inside. Oops. Well, I will delete and redo it. This would be easier. Just tab key, delete. Right, I would redo the void. So switch to the top view this time, and I will draw a circle. Maybe I want a circle cut through both geometries. Right, now I can create a void. Okay, and choose the cylindrical. So now if I switch to the 3D view, you can see the void should be cutted. Right, I have to drag it down. The reason is, let me switch to the third view, the front view. The reason is, it really depends on how you create a cylindrical in the first place. It has a snapping, automatic snapping function. So let me undo that so I can show you exactly how it looks like from beginning. See now, if I draw the circle, right, the third attempt. So when I draw the circle, if you roll over your mouse, you can see the cursor highlight the roof, right? Highlight this roof, or highlight this roof. This is became the automatic reference plan when you construct the geometry. So if I draw the circle now, the circle is attached to the roof. Or click circle now is attached to this roof. If I click the circle now, it's attached to the facade. So it's kind of tricky. You have to be careful which is our reference plan. So if I'm using the lower one, this is my roof. If I draw the circle now, you can see this circle is kind of on top of this lower roof, right? So now if I create a void, you might see this circle should cut through both. And then of course you can always switch to the front view, and here you can adjust, the height, make sure you are cutting them in the right way. Okay. But again, if you do want to modify, you can always using the tab key. Right, so here you can actually switch between your selection. Right. So at some point you can actually select this circle again. This is the place you can manipulate the circle. If you want to relocate, or if you want to change the height, this is the place you can do that. So it's quite tricky. You just need to play with it. Keep in mind, sometimes the side view would be a better place. You can, change the height easier. So now you see the cutting plans like that. Okay. So if we are happy, then we can click finish. But if for some reason you don't like the circle, just make sure to continue using the tab key. Right. Cycle through your selection. As soon as you see this circle be selected, the original cylinder, you can click, select the whole cylinder, then you can delete to get rid of it. Right? So this is kind of the trick you can undo in massing model. All right. So if I'm pretty happy with it, I can click finish. You're done with this new massing model. All right. It includes a little bit more complicated form. And then you can start to paint colors. So here in this case, I'm going to use modify, and then I'm going to paint maybe just red color, green color for the roof, right? And then maybe red color for the facade. Right. So you have a little bit more complicated form now. Oops, I want to paint the green here. Maybe glass for this part of the circle. It's hard to make selection, so sometimes you can switch your view, or you can just keep painting the green. Okay, so this is one way you can create a little bit more complicated form. Another way you can do that is I will start another new massing model. And this time, I will start with a box as well. Okay, so this is the simple one, and I create a solid form. Okay, so for this box, instead of cutting another shape, I'm going to just add a new profile. Okay, the profile is kind of like a cutting plan. So here, if I add a profile right here, you can see this new cutting plan is sliced through the box. Right. The benefit is if you create a cutting profile, then you can select this line, and then you see this XYZ manipulator. If I push this forward, right, you can create a curved shape. So basically you create additional edges, allow you to manipulate the form by dragging these controlled edges. So here, if you need a curved facade, this could be the way to go. Right? So here we go, got a curved facade. If I want to continue to shape this curved facade, I can just give a color first. It's a little bit hard to see. Make sure I'm in a good perspective, right? It's a curved shape. Then I'm going to go to modify. Click first, right? Go to modify. Then I click the tint. I will give green to the roof, maybe red to the wall, maybe some glass to the facade, right? So this is the same kind of process you can apply to other geometry. And if I want to continue adding complexity to this massing model, I can go to edit in place. I can add additional things, maybe for example another box. So here if you see my current working plans on the roof, so now if I draw, well, this is on the facade, let me do the cancel to the roof. Yeah, just make sure you pay attention to which working plan you are locked. Right? So now if I draw it here, I draw this new rectangular profile on the roof. You do see here the tiny lock button. So if you do locked these two edges, this new shape will always go with the old one. So here, if I select using tab, right, make sure I select the whole profile on the roof. Now we'll create a solid. I may make the solid a bit higher, maybe pick the edge, make the edge lower, right? So this is the new shape on the roof. So now if I select my old one, okay, oops, I probably don't want to move that one. If I pick this edge, I'll pick this, let's see if I can pick the whole face. Not very easy. Well, let's just do the edge though. So if I move the edge, I want to show you what happened. Right. Oops. We can't really move this edge, but let's move on to the other direction. Let's pick the other edge. The middle view is not really easy to use. Right. So if I pick this edge, right. So if I move this edge backwards, see what happened? The upper geometry will somehow move as well because they have this kind of locked relationship. So the movement is relative to the reference edge at the bottom. Okay, so I will leave this to you. Maybe this is not really important, but in Revit you can lock the relationship of the geometry. So sometimes this could be pretty handy if you want to maintain certain relationship. All right, I think that's pretty much about how you can work with the massing model in a more complicated form. But I would suggest keep things simple. Don't overdo this organic style. This is going to be a little bit difficult in the future if you want to change. And also, as I mentioned before, always pay attention to the reference plan. So if I draw a new rectangular shape, highlight here, you will know this reference plan became the facade. So now if you draw, you see this new geometry will be on the facade. So now if I create a void, you will see this one will push in this direction. Right? So that's the way it cutting through this model. So that really depends on your current reference plan. All right, let me see anything else for the complicated form. I think that's it. Again, don't overdo this. If you just want to play with it, I would recommend just do a new geometry. Don't try to mess up your current one. Using the tab key to make the right selection. Once you have the selection, the tool will show up. So besides adding profile, you can add an edge as well. So the edge is kind of like another axis. So once you add the edges, then if I'm using the tab key again, you should be able to see this new additional edges right here. So now if I move, you should see the geometry can be pushed, kind of like an organic subdivision. It's kind of tricky. You have to play with these different options. Some of them will give you a really crazy form, so feel free to explore. But as I said before, this will give you some difficulty in the future if you start to convert this into a wall or into a facade, like a glazing system. You have to think about how exactly you can create this organic form in glaze or window frames. All right, I hope this is gonna be helpful, and I will finish the recording.